It started with a funeral. You'd think that going to a funeral, especially of someone you cared about, would be the one thing nobody could argue with. But sometimes, even grief becomes controversial. So let me take you into this story. A story that's messy, that's human, that's about love, regret, trauma, and ultimately, healing. It begins with a woman. Let's call her Emily. Emily's ex-boyfriend Jason had died. Tragic, sudden, the kind of loss that shocks you into silence, even when the relationship was long over. But here's the thing. Emily and Jason hadn't just broken up and moved on. No. Jason had been emotionally abusive. There were years of manipulation, control, and pain. And yet, Emily wanted to go to his funeral. Not to honor the love they shared, not to romanticize what they once had, but because she needed closure. Because part of grieving a toxic relationship is confronting all the feelings that come up. Anger, sadness, confusion. She wanted to stand at that grave and say, "You hurt me, but I survived." Only her current boyfriend, Matt, didn't understand that. Matt was supportive in most ways. But when Emily told him she wanted to go to Jason's funeral, his reaction was anything but supportive. He was upset, insecure. He didn't want her there. From his point of view, it looked like she was holding on to something from the past. But from her point of view, this was a final goodbye. And so, the conflict was born. Emily posted on Reddit's "Am I the Asshole?" community, asking the world, "Am I the asshole for wanting to go to the funeral of my abusive ex?" Responses poured in, and overwhelmingly, the internet sided with her. They told her, "You're not the asshole. Closure matters. Trauma doesn't magically disappear just because the person is gone. If attending the funeral gives you peace, that's your right." She was flooded with stories from people who had been through similar things. Those who had lost toxic parents, estranged siblings, or ex-partners who left wounds behind. The message was clear. Grief isn't always about love. Sometimes it's about finally letting go. But that wasn't the end. Weeks later, Emily came back with an update. She had gone to the funeral. She didn't tell Matt beforehand. She knew it would cause another fight. She didn't have the energy to explain it again. So she quietly went, said her goodbyes, and returned home. When Matt found out, he was furious. He felt betrayed, lied to. He accused her of being emotionally unfaithful, of still having feelings for Jason. But Emily stood her ground. She explained again that this wasn't about love. This was about healing. She talked about the trauma, about how abuse doesn't end when a relationship does, about how burying those feelings would only let them fester. Matt still didn't understand. He gave her an ultimatum. Go to therapy, or the relationship is over. And here's the twist. Emily agreed, not because she was ashamed, but because she realized maybe therapy was a good idea. Not for Matt, for herself. Because surviving abuse is one thing, processing it is another. And maybe, just maybe, this was the push she needed to start the deeper work of healing. So she went. She found a therapist. She started unpacking years of hurt, control, fear, and guilt. And something amazing happened. She didn't just get over Jason. She got stronger. She began setting boundaries more clearly. She learned to express her needs more openly. And she started seeing the cracks in her relationship with Matt more clearly too. Because support, real support, isn't conditional. It doesn't come with ultimatums. So months passed, and ultimately, Emily ended things with Matt. It wasn't a dramatic breakup. No slammed doors. No shouting, just a quiet realization that he didn't see her fully, that he didn't trust her enough to walk with her through her healing, that he wanted her to move on, but only in the way that made him comfortable. And that's not love. That's control. Just wearing a different mask. So where is Emily now? She's still in therapy. She's still healing. But now, she's not apologizing for her past. She's embracing it. She's using it to fuel her growth. And most importantly, she's finally found peace with a chapter of her life that once held her captive. All because she went to a funeral. Not all goodbyes are for the living. Sometimes we say goodbye to versions of ourselves, to old identities, to broken patterns. And sometimes, those goodbyes are the most sacred. Now here's where I step in, not just as a narrator, but as a human. Let's talk about why this story matters. In American culture, we often glamorize moving on. We tell people to get over it, to let the past stay in the past, to forgive and forget. But trauma doesn't work that way. Healing is not linear, and closure doesn't arrive in a neat little package tied with a bow. Sometimes it means visiting a grave. Sometimes it means crying in the car. Sometimes it means walking away from someone who claims to love you, but doesn't understand your pain. Emily's story reminds us that we all carry invisible wounds, and healing those wounds doesn't always look like strength. It often looks like vulnerability. It looks like shaking hands, like second-guessing your choices, like choosing yourself, even when it costs you relationships. That's powerful. That's courageous. And that's why stories like this matter. Now I want to leave you with this question. Have you ever felt guilty for wanting closure? Have you ever been made to feel like your grief wasn't valid because the person who hurt you is gone? If so, comment below. Share your story. Let's build a space where healing is celebrated, not judged. This is AITA Stories, where real people, real emotions, and real growth take center stage. And remember, sometimes closure comes not from the people who hurt us, but from the choice to say, I am still here, and I am no longer afraid. Thanks for listening.